Tonight on Bridge City News, RCMP have arrested 2 people in connection with Friday's fatal shooting at a Walmart store in Red Deer, Alberta. There are conflicting responses from the northern Nova Scotia communities affected by the closure of their local pulp mill. And the federal Conservatives are postponing April's policy convention to prepare for their leadership race.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Paul Arthur.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Today marks the beginning of the Jewish celebration of Hanukkah, which runs through until the evening of Monday, December 30th. Alberta Premier Jason Kenney took some time out today to honor the Jewish community and to defend religious freedom.
Happy Hanukkah to all members of Alberta's Jewish community, celebrating this triumph of good over evil and of light over darkness. Of course, Hanukkah commemorates one of the most important moments in early Jewish history, when the Maccabees triumphed to cleanse the temple and rededicate it. It reminds us of the miraculous burning for 8 days of the Hanukkah lantern. And it also reminds us about the central importance of religious freedom, because after all, that is what the Maccabees were fighting for, against an oppressive force that did not permit them to celebrate their Jewish traditions and faith, and which defiled the temple of the Jewish people. All of this should remind us of a number of things. First of all, the indigenous presence of the Jewish people in their Holy Land for millennia, for endless generations. It should remind us that the Jewish people have always had to defend their religious freedom and their right to exist as a people. And it should remind those of us who are not members of the Jewish community of the importance of solidarity, not just symbolically, but practical expressions of solidarity for the Jewish people and for any people who faces persecution because of their faith or because of who they are.
Authorities have released new information about Friday's fatal shooting that took place at a Walmart in Red Deer, Alberta. Initially, police had said they believed the incident was a targeted attack. However, after further investigation, they say it was in fact a random event. As Charles William and his wife were leaving the store, a stranger approached them and an altercation resulted, and that is when shots were fired. The man then jumped into a stolen vehicle driven by a woman. RCMP later spotted the vehicle near Rimbey and used spike belts to stop the vehicle and arrested an 18-year-old man and a 30-year-old woman. There was both fear and elation in northern Nova Scotia communities yesterday, one day after the decision by Premier Stephen McNeil to keep a pledge he made to Pictou Landing First Nation to end the flow of northern pulp effluent into a lagoon near the community. Shortly after, the company announced the closure of the mill and predicted the loss of thousands of forestry jobs.
I see a lot of devastation in their faces, a lot of tears, and a lot of concern, and a lot of apprehension, not knowing what does the future hold. And people really, really reeling, can't believe that the government let them down over an arbitrary deadline.
It's like a death. That's what it feels like. We're grieving for, I've been there for 35 years. I'll get something of my pension. But the young worker, I really feel for them because, they set roots in rural Nova Scotia, and now it's gone. Their hopes and dreams are gone. It's a tough one. I have family members from First Nation. I understand they've been long waiting for closure of Boat Harbour. I'm just sad the company was not at the table, and the government made the decision on 5 years arbitrarily. We don't even know, at the end of the day, after all these studies, will it be cleaned up? But by then, the devastation's already happened for both parties.
They're very excited that they've been heard and validated and acknowledged. And that is probably the best Christmas present we could have gotten as a community. We've had our share of traumas from all the things that have been happening because of this pollution. There really is no one to blame other than themselves. They knew what was required both times. And so the government made a responsible decision to say there just wasn't enough information. There just wasn't enough to say there is going to be no harm to this environment.
We've been lied to and betrayed so many times that It's unbelievable what the Premier did. They had plenty of time to fix this problem, and they just chose not to.
Meanwhile, BC's opposition Liberals continue to demand the NDP government help thousands of forest workers struggling through an industry downturn and a lengthy strike. Mill shutdowns and layoffs have put some 3,000 people out of work, and a forest industry strike on Vancouver Island has dragged on for almost 6 months. Liberal forestry critic John Rustad says the government has been unwilling to intervene in the strike, resulting in economic suffering in forest-dependent communities. Yesterday's massive tire fire at the Track recycling plant in Minto, New Brunswick has finally been contained, but there's no word yet on how long mopping up operations might take. It could also take a while to determine the fire's possible impact on the local environment. 15 fire crews battled the blaze that spewed clouds of toxic black smoke. No word yet on the cause of that blaze. It's a Christmas far from home for 69 Canadians. They are in Australia to join the battle against the deadly wildfires devastating several states. Canadian Interagency Forest Fire Centre Executive Director Kim Connors says the crews will be taking care of operations, aviation, and other forms of planning, but not the front lines of the inferno. The federal Conservatives won't be picking a leader to replace Andrew Scheer until November. The party has announced it is postponing a policy convention set for mid-April to allow more time to organize an upcoming leadership race. Just a few days ago, a former senior party official said it would be exceptionally difficult to organize the contest that quickly. 4 of the 13 people wounded in an early morning shooting at a house party on Chicago's South Side are in critical condition. Police say there was a dispute at a memorial being held for a person killed back in April. The victims range in age from 16 to 48. Police are questioning 2 people and have recovered a revolver. Clashes that have killed 23 people so far continue today between Indian police and protesters angry about a new citizenship law that excludes Muslims. The law allows Hindus, Christians, and other religious minorities who are in India illegally to become citizens if they can show they were persecuted because of their religion in Muslim-majority Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Afghanistan. Critics call it a violation of India's secular constitution and say it is another effort to marginalize the country's 200 million Muslims. A message a 6-year-old girl found in a box of charity Christmas cards has prompted Britain's Tesco grocery chain to halt production at a factory in China. It has launched an investigation into the possible use of forced labor to produce the cards. The Sunday Times reports the child in South London found a message reading, quote, "We are foreign prisoners in Shanghai Qingpu Prison, China, forced to work against our will. Please help us and notify Human Rights Organization." Tesco says it would never allow prison labor in its supply chain. 8 customers at a Waffle House in Woodlawn, Ohio, made a huge difference for one family this Christmas. 6 friends decided to each give a waitress a $100 tip, and when 2 other customers saw what they were doing, they pitched in too. The waitress has 5 children and was reduced to tears by their generosity. Recapping one of our top news stories, RCMP have arrested 2 people in connection with Friday's fatal shooting at a Walmart store in Red Deer, Alberta. And they now say it was not a targeted attack, as first believed, but rather the result of an altercation. And a look at weekend weather, partly cloudy with fog patches developing overnight, dipping down to -5. For tomorrow, mainly sunny with fog clearing in the morning and a high of +2, with the west wind gusting from 20 to 40. Fires are devastating any time of the year, but especially around the holiday season. Hal Roberts sat down with Troy Hicks, fire prevention officer with the City of Lethbridge, to talk fire safety. That's next. But first, here's a look at what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News Community Calendar. Come for a beautiful and reflective time at the Christmas Eve candlelight service at City Light Church on December 24th from 5 to 6 p.m. Celebrate the birth of our Savior by gathering together for a time of singing and hearing about the miraculous events that took place on that special night. Let's remember that Jesus is the reason for the season. Another Christmas Eve event that is taking place is at the Evangelical Free Church of Lethbridge, where they invite everyone to come for a free community Christmas experience. Enjoy Christmas goodies, activities for the kids, carol singing, and a Christmas message to infuse your season with joy. Times for this festive family-friendly event are 2, 4, and 6 p.m. For more information, visit efreelethbridge.ca/Christmas. And that's your Bridge City News Community Calendar.